At 11:47 on Christmas Eve, the snow outside the Bennett estate had turned the iron gates white, but Claire Bennett felt no warmth from the fire behind her. 7 months pregnant, dressed in a deep green maternity dress that followed her full, soft curves without apology, she stood beside a dinner table set for two and listened to her husband lie to another woman in the next room. Ethan Bennett was not merely wealthy. He controlled the Bennett organization, a Boston crime family disguised behind shipping companies, private security firms, and luxury real estate. To outsiders, he was a polished businessman. To men who owed him money, he was the last voice they wanted to hear. Tonight, however, Claire heard something colder than any threat. His tenderness toward Lauren Vale, the woman he insisted was just a business contact. Claire had known for 3 weeks. She had seen the hotel charge, the deleted messages, and the photograph reflected in the black glass of Ethan's study window, his hand resting at Lauren's waist. She had said nothing because silence gave careless people room to reveal themselves. She had spent years being underestimated for her body, her quiet voice, and the fact that she preferred numbers to weapons. Ethan had forgotten that Claire noticed everything. On the kitchen counter sat a sealed envelope from her obstetrician. Claire had learned that morning that stress was raising her blood pressure and that the baby might need to come early if it worsened. She had planned to tell Ethan over dinner. Beside the envelope rested a tiny wooden ornament shaped like a cradle, painted with the words "Baby Bennett, Christmas 2026. Ethan had never even noticed it. His footsteps crossed the marble floor behind her. "I have to go out for a while," he said, buttoning his black overcoat. "Lauren has a situation." Claire looked at him, then at the untouched roast, the candles burning low, and the empty chair across from hers. "A situation," she repeated. Ethan exhaled. "Don't do this tonight." She almost laughed. He was asking the betrayed wife to preserve Christmas. Claire placed one hand over the steady curve of her stomach as the baby shifted beneath her palm. The movement cleared something inside her. Not the pain, not the anger, the confusion. She had spent months wondering what she could fix, what she could forgive, and how much smaller she needed to make herself so Ethan would choose home. Tonight, she finally understood the answer was nothing. She met his eyes. "Go spend Christmas with her," Claire said. Ethan froze, perhaps expecting tears, accusations, or one of the desperate scenes Lauren had probably promised him would happen. Claire gave him none. Her voice stayed level. "I mean it. Go." He studied her face for a moment, then made the mistake that would follow him for the rest of his life. He believed her calm meant surrender. At 12:06, the front door closed behind him. Claire waited until the sound of his SUV disappeared beyond the gates. Then she blew out the candles, removed her wedding ring, and opened the locked drawer beneath the kitchen desk. Inside was a passport, 2 phones, a flash drive, and a folder of documents Ethan did not know she had copied. She was not leaving because she was afraid of Lauren. She was leaving because someone inside Ethan's organization had used Lauren to move money through accounts tied to Claire's name, and Claire had found the pattern before anyone else. If she stayed until morning, the evidence might disappear, or she might. She slipped the medical envelope into her bag, then called the only person she trusted enough to help her leave without Ethan's men knowing. By sunrise, Ethan returned smelling of expensive perfume and cold air. The house was silent. Claire was gone. So was his mother. On the table, "Don't follow us, Ethan." Ethan stood in the kitchen doorway long after he had read the note. "Don't follow us, Ethan." 4 words should not have frightened a man like him. He had stared down armed rivals, federal investigations, and men who smiled while planning murder. Yet Claire's handwriting made his chest tighten in a way no gun ever had. His mother was gone too. Margaret Bennett's bedroom upstairs had been emptied with the same quiet efficiency. Her medication was missing. Her winter coat was gone. So was the framed photograph of Ethan's late father that she kept beside her bed. Claire had not stormed out. She had planned. That realization bothered him most. He pulled out his phone and called Claire. Straight to voicemail. Again. Nothing. He called his mother. Nothing. His jaw tightened. Damn it. The word echoed through the silent house. Only then did Ethan notice the dinner table. 2 plates, 2 glasses, cold food untouched beneath silver covers. And between the Christmas candles hung a small wooden cradle ornament. "Baby Bennett, Christmas 2026. His throat tightened. He reached for it, but stopped before touching it. For the first time, the previous night returned without the excuse he had wrapped around it. Claire standing beside the table, one hand over her belly, her voice calm. Go spend Christmas with her. He had gone. Across town, Claire sat in the passenger seat of Margaret's older sedan as snow-covered houses passed beneath the gray Christmas morning. She had slept less than an hour. Her back ached. Her ankles were swollen. Her blood pressure had been too high at yesterday's appointment, and the baby had been unusually active through the night. Still, she had never felt more certain. Margaret drove with both hands firmly on the wheel. At 67, Ethan's mother carried herself with the quiet discipline of someone who had survived more funerals than celebrations in the Bennett family. You should try to rest, Margaret said. I will when we get there. You said that an hour ago. Claire gave a tired smile. Margaret glanced at her. You don't have to pretend with me. I'm not pretending. Yes, you are. Claire looked out the window. For months, she had protected Ethan's mother from the truth. She had blamed business meetings for his absences, explained away canceled dinners, and smiled whenever Margaret said her son would settle down once the baby arrived. Last night, Claire finally stopped protecting him. When Margaret had seen the suitcase near the stairs and demanded an explanation, Claire showed her the messages. Not all of them, just enough. Lauren's name, the hotel bookings, the Christmas Eve invitation. Margaret had read everything in complete silence. Then she had walked upstairs and packed her own bag. I raised him better than this, she had said. Claire remembered answering, maybe you did, but he still chose this. Margaret had not defended him. That mattered more than Claire could explain. They were heading north toward a small property outside Portsmouth, New Hampshire, owned under Margaret's maiden name. Ethan had never visited it. Claire doubted he even knew it still existed. For now, it was somewhere she could breathe. But distance from Ethan was only part of the reason she had left. The other reason sat inside her handbag, a black encrypted flash drive. 3 weeks earlier, Claire had been reviewing household accounts when she noticed payments routed through a consulting company she had never heard of. Her name appeared on 2 authorization records. She had never signed them. Claire had spent 6 years working as a forensic accountant before pregnancy complications forced her to step away. Numbers were not background noise to her. They were fingerprints. She followed them. Shell companies, fake invoices, transfers connected to Bennett-controlled properties. And every trail seemed to bend toward Lauren Vale. But Lauren was not clever enough to build something that complicated alone. Someone inside Ethan's organization was using her, and using Claire's identity as cover. Claire pressed a hand against her stomach when the baby kicked. Margaret noticed. Pain? No, just movement. You're sure? Claire nodded. Her phone suddenly vibrated. Unknown number. She looked at the screen. One message. You took something that doesn't belong to you. Claire's blood turned cold. A second message arrived. Ethan can't protect you now. Margaret saw her face change. What is it? Claire slowly locked the phone. For the first time since leaving the estate, fear entered her voice. They already know I'm gone. And whoever had found her number knew something even Ethan did not yet understand. Claire had not simply left her marriage. She had taken evidence powerful enough to start a war. Claire did not tell Margaret everything. Not yet. The house outside Portsmouth stood at the end of a narrow road, lined with bare trees and frozen stone walls. It was smaller than the Bennett estate, older too, with creaking floors, faded blue shutters, and a kitchen that smelled faintly of cedar. Claire loved it immediately. There were no guards at the gate, no cameras in every hallway, no men waiting for Ethan's orders. Margaret locked the door behind them and placed her handbag on the kitchen table. You need to show me the message. Claire hesitated. Margaret held out her hand. I left my son's house with you in the middle of Christmas night. I think we're past pretending I can't handle the truth. Claire handed her the phone. Margaret read both threats twice. Her expression hardened. This isn't Lauren. I don't think so either. You're sure? Lauren likes attention. Whoever sent this doesn't want attention. They want control. Margaret looked at her differently then, not as Ethan's pregnant wife, as someone who understood the world around him better than he realized. Claire opened her laptop. Before marrying Ethan, she had spent years tracing fraud for banks and private firms. She knew how criminals hid money because, eventually, they all made the same mistake. They believed complexity made them invisible. Claire believed patterns made them visible. She inserted the encrypted drive. Rows of transactions appeared. Margaret stared at the screen. I don't understand any of this. You don't need to. Claire pointed towards several transfers. These amounts repeat every 19 days. Different companies, different accounts, but almost identical percentages. And legitimate businesses don't breathe in perfect rhythm. Margaret sat quietly. Claire opened another file. One authorization carried her electronic signature. Except the signature timestamp showed 2:14 in the morning on October 7th. Claire remembered that night perfectly. She had been in the emergency room after experiencing severe abdominal pain. Ethan had sat beside her for 6 hours, or at least she had believed he had. For part of that night, he had disappeared to take a call. Claire stared at the timestamp. Something inside her shifted. She remembered Ethan returning with 2 paper cups of terrible hospital coffee. He had placed hers beside her bed with 3 packets of brown sugar. 3. Always 3. He had remembered that tiny preference from their first date. For years afterward, no matter how angry they were, Ethan made her morning coffee the same way. 3 packets. It had become their smallest ritual. A quiet sign that some part of him still noticed her. Claire looked away from the screen. The memory hurt more than Lauren. Because betrayal was easier when the person had never loved you. Ethan had. That was what made his choices unforgivable. Across Massachusetts, Ethan sat alone in his study holding Claire's coffee mug. 3 brown sugar packets lay unopened beside it. He had made the drink automatically before remembering she was gone. His right-hand man, Vincent Moretti, stood across the desk. We checked airports, train stations, private drivers, nothing. My mother? Her cards haven't been used. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Claire planned this. Vincent remained silent. That silence irritated him. Say it. You want my opinion? No. I want the truth. Vincent nodded toward the mug. The truth is, boss, you knew what kind of woman your wife was. Ethan looked up sharply. She never threatened, never made scenes, never embarrassed you publicly. If Claire walked away, she probably decided long before you heard the door close. Ethan's jaw tightened. His phone buzzed. Lauren. He ignored it. For the first time since Christmas Eve, he wondered why Lauren had insisted he come to her apartment immediately. Why that night? Why when Claire was home alone? Then Vincent placed a security report on the desk. One more thing. Ethan opened it. At 12:31 a.m., 17 minutes after Claire left the estate, an unidentified black sedan had stopped near the East Service Road. It remained there for 6 minutes. No license plate was visible. Ethan's expression changed. Someone was watching the house. Vincent nodded, and whoever it was followed the direction Mrs. Bennett's car took. Ethan stood so quickly the chair struck the wall. His anger vanished. What replaced it was fear, not jealousy, not wounded pride. Fear, because for the first time, Ethan understood that Claire had not disappeared to punish him. Someone else had been waiting for her to leave. Claire saw the headlights before she heard the engine. A dark SUV moved slowly past the front windows of Margaret's house, disappeared beyond the trees, then returned 3 minutes later. Claire closed her laptop. Margaret noticed immediately. What? Turn off the kitchen light. There was no panic in Claire's voice, and that frightened Margaret more than shouting would have. She crossed the room and switched off the light. The house fell into shadow. Outside, snow drifted beneath the porch lamp. The SUV stopped near the end of the driveway. Claire's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. The baby shifted. You think they followed us? Margaret whispered. I think they were already looking. Claire reached for her phone but did not call Ethan. That surprised Margaret. You should tell him. No. Claire. Whatever he did. This isn't about punishing him. Claire looked toward the window. If someone inside his organization is involved, I don't know who Ethan can trust. Calling him might tell them exactly where we are. Margaret absorbed that. Then came a knock. 3 slow taps against the front door. Neither woman moved. Another knock. Claire stepped toward the hallway. Margaret caught her arm. Absolutely not. I'm not opening it. Claire moved to the narrow side window instead. A delivery box sat on the porch. No person. No vehicle. Nothing except snow. She waited another full minute before opening the inner door while keeping the security chain locked. The box was white. No shipping label. No name. Claire's pulse quickened. She used the fireplace poker to pull it inside. Margaret stared at her. You've done this before? Fraud investigations occasionally made people unhappy. That is an impressive understatement. Claire almost smiled. Then she opened the box. Inside, was a photograph. Her wedding photograph. Ethan stood behind her, one hand around her waist. Claire was laughing at something outside the frame. A red line had been drawn through Ethan's face. Under Claire's image, someone had written, "Return the drive." Margaret sat down hard. Oh, God. Claire turned the photograph over. Nothing. She examined the box. Cheap cardboard. No obvious fingerprints. But beneath the photograph was something else. A hospital identification bracelet. Claire stopped breathing. It carried her name. Claire Bennett. The date was October 7th, the night she had gone to the emergency room. Margaret looked from the bracelet to Claire. How would they have that? Claire already knew the answer. Someone had been close enough to access her hospital records. Or close enough to Ethan? Her phone rang. Unknown number again. This time Claire answered. Silence. Then a distorted male voice. You have until tomorrow. Claire kept her tone steady. Tomorrow for what? You know. No. I know someone stole my identity. I know money moved through companies connected to my husband. I know you're scared enough to threaten a pregnant woman on Christmas. Silence. Claire continued. But scared people make mistakes. The caller breathed once into the line, then said, Ask Ethan where he was at 2:14 a.m. on October 7th. The call ended. Claire stared at the phone. The timestamp, her forged signature, Ethan leaving her hospital room. For the first time, suspicion moved somewhere she had refused to let it go. Margaret saw it. You think my son did this? I don't know. A sudden cramp tightened across Claire's abdomen. She gripped the table. Margaret was beside her instantly. Claire? I'm fine. You are not fine. Another wave came stronger. Claire closed her eyes and breathed through it. Her doctor's warning returned. High blood pressure. Stress. Possible early labor. Margaret grabbed the car keys. We're going to the hospital. Claire shook her head. If they can access my medical records, a hospital admission tells them where I am. And if something happens to the baby? That ended the argument. 20 minutes later, Margaret's sedan pulled away through the snow toward Portsmouth Regional Hospital. Neither woman noticed the second vehicle parked without lights 2 streets away. But someone inside it lifted a phone. She's moving, the man said. A voice answered. Follow her. And before Claire reached the hospital, the person hunting the flash drive would make the first move that could no longer be dismissed as a warning. Portsmouth Regional Hospital was quiet for Christmas morning. Claire hated that the silence made every sound feel dangerous. The elevator doors opened onto the maternity floor, and Margaret stayed close beside her, while a nurse guided Claire into an examination room. The cramps had slowed during the drive, but her blood pressure remained high. Your baby's heartbeat is strong, Dr. Ellen Shaw said after checking the monitor. But I want you resting today. No arguments. Claire managed a tired smile. I'm getting very tired of people telling me not to argue. Dr. Shaw smiled back. Then argue tomorrow. Margaret squeezed Claire's hand. For several minutes, watching the steady movement on the monitor, Claire allowed herself to breathe. Her daughter was safe. For now. Then her phone vibrated. One message. Look outside. Claire's body went still. What is it? Margaret asked. Claire crossed toward the window. Below them, several floors down, snow covered the parking lot in a pale sheet. A black sedan waited near the entrance, the same shape she had seen outside Margaret's house. A man stood beside it, dark coat, hands in his pockets. Looking directly toward the hospital windows, Claire stepped back. He followed us. Margaret reached for her phone. I'm calling Ethan. Claire caught her wrist. No, Claire. We still don't know who inside his organization is involved. You also don't know whether Ethan is. That sentence hurt because it was true. Claire looked toward the hospital bracelet inside her handbag. October 7th, 2:11 a.m. Her forged signature. Ethan's unexplained absence. I need one answer first. Across state lines, Ethan was asking questions of his own. He stood inside the Bennett organization's private security office while Vincent pulled archived surveillance records from October 7th. Why that date? Vincent asked. Claire was at the hospital. And? Someone forged her authorization on a financial transfer that night. Vincent stopped typing. You're sure? I'm sure she thinks so. The screen loaded. Security footage from the Bennett headquarters appeared. 203 Amerikata. An elevator opened. A man stepped onto the executive floor. Vincent leaned closer. That's impossible. Ethan recognized him immediately. Gabriel Rourke, his uncle, his father's oldest friend. the man who had helped Ethan take control after his father died. Gabriel entered Ethan's office using an emergency access card. 11 minutes later, at exactly 2:14, the internal financial server registered Claire Bennett's electronic approval. Ethan felt cold. Why would Gabriel have access to Claire's signature? Vincent did not answer. He did not need to. Ethan remembered October 7th, Claire in a hospital bed, her face pale, her fingers wrapped around his hand. Then Gabriel calling him downstairs because one of their warehouses had supposedly been compromised. Ethan had left Claire alone for 37 minutes. Someone had known exactly when he would be gone. His phone rang. Lauren. This time, Ethan answered. Where are you? Lauren sounded surprised. Merry Christmas to you too. Where are you? At home. Did Gabriel Rourke ever ask you about Claire? Silence. Too much silence. Ethan's voice lowered. Lauren, I don't know what you're talking about. He heard fear, not confusion. Tell me. Lauren breathed shakily. He asked questions. What questions? About your schedule. About Claire's accounts. I thought it was business. Ethan closed his eyes. When? A few months ago. Before he could ask more, the line disconnected. Vincent looked toward him. She knows something. Yes. And Claire? Ethan stared at the frozen surveillance image of Gabriel entering his office. Claire knows more. Back at the hospital, Margaret had stepped into the hallway to speak with the nurse. Claire was alone when the door opened. She expected Margaret. Instead, a man wearing hospital scrubs entered. Claire immediately noticed his shoes. Black leather. Too expensive. Too polished. Not hospital shoes. His hand moved toward his pocket. Claire reached for the emergency call button. The man smiled. Mrs. Bennett, don't make this difficult. Claire pressed the button. Nothing happened. The wire beneath the bed had been cut. She looked at him. Then at the locked door. Fear hit her hard. But Claire did not scream. She reached quietly for the metal water pitcher beside her. Because whoever had entered that room expected a frightened pregnant woman. He had no idea Claire Bennett had already decided she would never be anyone's victim again. Claire tightened her fingers around the metal pitcher as the man in scrubs stepped closer. Give me the drive, he said. His voice was calm, almost bored. Claire glanced toward the door. Margaret would return soon, unless someone had stopped her. I don't know what you're talking about. The man smiled. Mrs. Bennett, you found transfers that were never meant to be found. You copied records that belong to people who do not forgive curiosity. Claire forced herself to breathe slowly. Fear could make people careless. She could not afford careless. You mean records stolen under my name? His expression changed slightly. That was enough. Claire had guessed correctly. You forged my authorization, she continued, but you made one mistake. What mistake? You assumed I wouldn't notice. His hand came out of his pocket. No gun. A syringe. Claire's pulse jumped. He stepped forward. She threw the pitcher. Water exploded across his chest as the metal struck his shoulder. He cursed and stumbled. Claire moved immediately. She grabbed the rolling medical tray and shoved it between them. The man recovered quickly, knocking it aside. Claire backed toward the bathroom. She was pregnant. She could not outrun him, so she stopped trying. Instead, she pulled the fire alarm mounted beside the bathroom door. The hallway erupted with noise. An alarm screamed. Doors opened. Nurses shouted. The attacker froze. Claire screamed then. Help! He turned for the door just as Margaret appeared with a security officer. The man shoved past them. The officer chased him down the hallway. Margaret rushed to Claire. Are you hurt? No. The baby? Claire pressed both hands against her stomach. A kick answered her. I think she's okay. Margaret stared at the overturned tray, the syringe on the floor, and the cut emergency wire. Her face went pale. That man came here for you. He came for the drive. Margaret looked at Claire. And you still don't want Ethan involved? Claire did not answer immediately, because something had changed. The attacker had confirmed the records were real, and someone powerful enough to manipulate hospital access had decided Claire was dangerous. She could not simply disappear anymore. She needed to know who had used her identity. More importantly, she needed to know whether Ethan had helped them. Across Massachusetts, Ethan slammed Gabriel Rourke against the wall of his private office. Vincent closed the door behind them. Gabriel did not resist. At 62, he had spent most of his life around violent men. Even with Ethan's hand gripping his collar, he remained strangely calm. You accessed my office October 7th, Ethan said. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. Did I? Don't. Ethan shoved a printed security image against his chest. Claire's signature was used 11 minutes after you walked inside. Gabriel looked at the photograph, then smiled. That smile made Ethan release him. You think this is funny? No, Gabriel said. I think it's embarrassing. For who? For you. Ethan's expression hardened. Gabriel straightened his jacket. Your wife has been examining accounts for weeks, and you never noticed. Your mistress has been passing information she barely understands, and now Claire has disappeared with something valuable. Ethan went still. You know where she is? No. Who is behind the transfers? Gabriel smiled again. You're asking the wrong question. Ethan stepped closer. Then give me the right one. Gabriel lowered his voice. Ask why Claire Bennett's name was chosen. Silence filled the office. Ethan felt something cold settle in his stomach. Gabriel continued. Someone needed a person close enough to you to access protected accounts, but innocent enough to take the fall when federal investigators finally arrived. Ethan stared at him. You framed my wife. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Vincent's phone rang. He answered, listened, then looked sharply at Ethan. What? Vincent lowered the phone. There was an incident at a hospital in Portsmouth. Every muscle in Ethan's body tightened. Claire? She's alive. Ethan exhaled once. Then Vincent added the part that changed everything. The attacker left a syringe behind. Security found traces of a sedative. Ethan turned toward Gabriel. For the first time, Gabriel's confidence disappeared. Only for a second. But Ethan saw it. And in that single second, Ethan realized the man who had helped raise him was terrified that Claire had survived long enough to expose the truth. Claire was signing the hospital discharge papers when Ethan arrived. She heard his voice before she saw him. Low, controlled, dangerous. Where is she? 2 security officers tried to stop him outside the maternity unit. Vincent stood behind him, speaking quietly to hospital staff, but Ethan barely seemed aware of anyone except the closed door separating him from Claire. Margaret folded her arms. You called him? No, Claire said. He found us. That was worse. The door opened. Ethan entered alone. For 1 second, neither of them spoke. Claire had imagined seeing him again. She had imagined anger, disgust, maybe even the satisfaction of watching him realize she had actually left. Instead, she felt exhausted. Ethan looked different, not weaker, just stripped of the certainty he normally wore like armor. His gaze moved over her face, then down toward her stomach. Are you hurt? No. The baby? She's fine. His shoulders lowered almost imperceptibly. Then his eyes found Margaret. You shouldn't have brought her here without protection. Margaret's expression hardened. I didn't bring her anywhere. She left you. Ethan looked back at Claire. I need to move you somewhere secure. Claire almost laughed. No, this isn't a discussion. It became a discussion the moment you stopped being my husband in every way that mattered. His jaw tightened. Claire, someone tried to drug you, and someone used my identity inside your organization. I know. That stopped her. Ethan stepped closer, but kept several feet between them. Gabriel accessed my office the night your signature was forged. Claire stared at him. Your uncle? He's not my uncle by blood. He practically raised you. I know. And Lauren? A flicker crossed Ethan's face. Claire saw it. Tell me. She admitted Gabriel asked questions about you. Your schedule. Your accounts. Claire's expression remained calm, but her fingers tightened around the discharge folder. So while you were sleeping with her, she was collecting information about me. Ethan did not defend himself. That surprised Claire more than an excuse would have. Yes. The single word landed heavily. Margaret looked away. Ethan continued. I failed you. Claire met his eyes. That is not the same as what happened. He went silent. You made choices, she said. Repeatedly. Don't turn betrayal into an accident because the consequences finally became inconvenient. Vincent appeared in the doorway. Boss. Ethan did not look away from Claire. What? We found the sedan. Where? Abandoned 3 miles from here. Wiped clean. Claire immediately asked, Any electronics? Vincent looked at her. A damaged navigation unit. Don't throw it away. We weren't planning to. People erase destinations, Claire said. They forget cached routes, Bluetooth pairings, maintenance logs. If the unit still has memory, it could tell you where that car spent time before today. Vincent glanced at Ethan. Ethan gave the smallest nod, not because he was granting permission, because Claire was right. She saw the difference, and so did he. Ethan reached into his coat and placed something on the table. 3 brown sugar packets. Claire stared at them. "I found them beside your mug this morning," he said quietly. Her throat tightened despite herself. He remembered. That was the cruelest part. He had remembered small things while destroying the large ones. Claire pushed the packets back toward him. "Memories don't repair trust." "I know." "No. I don't think you do yet." Ethan accepted that without argument. Then Claire opened her handbag and removed the encrypted flash drive. Vincent straightened. Ethan's eyes sharpened. Claire held it firmly. "You want what's on this?" "Yes." "Then we work together under my conditions." Ethan nodded once. "No tracking my phone. No men outside my room without my permission. Margaret stays with me. You tell me everything you discover, even if it makes your family look guilty. And the drive?" "Stays with me." Ethan hesitated. Claire raised an eyebrow. "That's the deal." Finally, he said, "Agreed." Claire stood carefully. Ethan instinctively reached toward her. She stepped back before he touched her. The pain in his face was brief, but unmistakable. Good. He needed to understand boundaries now. As they prepared to leave, Vincent's phone buzzed. He examined the message. His expression changed. "What?" Ethan asked. Vincent looked directly at Claire. The navigation unit recovered one saved location. Claire waited. Vincent swallowed. "It's not Gabriel's property." "Whose is it?" Vincent turned the screen toward them. The address belonged to Lauren Vale, and the vehicle had visited her apartment 11 times before Claire ever discovered the affair. Claire studied the recovered navigation data from a private conference room inside one of Ethan's legitimate security companies. She had refused to return to the Bennett estate. That house no longer felt like home. Margaret sat near the window with tea while Vincent worked across from Claire. Ethan remained standing, restless, watching the screen as if intimidation alone could force answers from it. Claire ignored him. The navigation unit had survived badly, but enough data remained to reveal 11 visits to Lauren's apartment, 3 trips to a warehouse near Chelsea Creek, and repeated stops at an underground parking garage beneath a financial office tower downtown. Vincent pointed toward the warehouse. "That property belongs to one of Gabriel's shell companies." Claire shook her head. "Too obvious." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean? If Gabriel planned this carefully enough to forge financial approvals, he wouldn't repeatedly drive a traceable vehicle to property connected directly to him." Vincent leaned closer. "So the warehouse is bait?" "Maybe." Claire enlarged the route history. Her eyes moved between timestamps. Something bothered her. The car visited Lauren's apartment most often late at night, but the downtown garage stops happened early mornings. Every 19 days. Claire froze. "What?" Ethan had noticed her expression. "Nothing yet." She opened the transaction spreadsheet on her laptop and compared the dates. January 4th, January 23rd, February 11th, March 2nd. Every 19 days. The same dates as the garage visits. Claire felt a small rush of certainty. This car wasn't transporting money. Vincent looked confused. What was it transporting? Access. She pulled up the corporate records connected to the downtown building. Most tenants were law firms, investment groups, and private wealth managers. One company occupied the entire 22nd floor. Harlow Fiduciary Services. Claire knew the name. She stared at it. Ethan noticed. "You recognize them. They manage private trusts." "So?" "So they managed mine." Silence settled over the room. Before marrying Ethan, Claire had built a stable career and saved carefully. After her father died, she inherited a modest trust intended for retirement and future children, nothing remotely close to Bennett wealth. But it was hers. And because Claire had never wanted Ethan's money confused with her independence, the trust remained separate. Her stomach tightened. "Someone wasn't just using my identity to move Bennett money." Ethan's voice lowered. "They were accessing your trust." Claire nodded. She logged into an archived account portal. 3 failed access attempts appeared from months earlier. Then one successful administrative override. October 7th. To and Martine A. Margaret covered her mouth. Claire stared at the screen without blinking. "The hospital. Again. They copied more than my signature," Claire said. Vincent asked, "What could they get from the trust?" "Identity documents. Tax records. Authentication history." She clicked through another page. then stopped. Her beneficiary designation had been changed. Her unborn daughter had been removed. In its place appeared a private holding company Claire had never seen. Ethan's face changed. If something happened to you, they would inherit through the shell structure. Margaret whispered, "They planned for her death." Claire felt fear, but underneath it came anger. Cold, focused, useful. She opened the metadata attached to the beneficiary change. Whoever had altered it had hidden the user credentials well, but not perfectly. One internal approval code remained. Claire copied it. "Vincent, can you identify which Bennett executive uses this authorization prefix?" He took the code. Within seconds, his expression hardened. Ethan stepped closer. "Who?" Vincent looked at Claire first, then Ethan. "It belongs to Sebastian Rourke, Gabriel's son, Ethan's cousin, the man currently controlling the Bennett organization's financial compliance department." Claire leaned back slowly. Suddenly, the entire structure became clearer. Gabriel had access. Sebastian had credentials. Lauren had proximity. And Claire had been selected because everyone assumed the pregnant wife would never look closely enough. Ethan looked furious. Claire looked calm. That difference mattered. "We don't confront Sebastian," she said. Ethan stared at her. "He tried to steal from you." "No. He tried to make me disposable." Her voice remained steady. "So we let him believe I still don't understand the whole plan." Vincent nodded slowly. "A trap." Claire turned the laptop toward them. "Not yet. First, we give them something they desperately want." Ethan's eyes moved toward the flash drive beside Claire's hand. "You want to use it as bait." Claire met his gaze. "I want them to think I'm frightened enough to trade it for safety." "And when they come?" Claire's expression changed. "They won't be coming for the drive." Margaret looked uneasy. "What will they be coming for?" Claire closed the laptop. "Me," she said. "And this time, I want them to believe they've won." Claire chose the meeting place herself. An abandoned accounting office above a closed pharmacy in South Boston was hardly glamorous, but that was exactly why she wanted it. No Bennett guards in the hallway, no polished marble, no reminders of the life she had left, only a folding table, 2 laptops, and a controlled plan. The message had already been sent. "I have the drive. I want protection for my baby. Tell me where to bring it." The reply came 12 minutes later. "Wait for instructions." Claire stared at the screen. "They believe you're scared," Vincent said. "I am scared." Ethan looked at her. Claire met his eyes. Being afraid and being helpless are not the same thing. He nodded slowly. That answer seemed to stay with him. Margaret had returned to the New Hampshire house under protection, giving Claire space to work. Vincent moved downstairs to coordinate surveillance, leaving Claire and Ethan alone for the first time since Christmas Eve. The silence between them felt heavier than any argument. Ethan finally spoke. "Why didn't you tell me about the accounts when you first found them?" Claire closed the laptop. "Would you have believed me?" "Yes." She gave him a long look. Ethan corrected himself. "I want to say yes. That isn't the same thing." "No." Claire turned toward the window. Snow pressed against the glass. "When I met you, I thought your world was dangerous because of guns and men who lied for money. I was wrong." Ethan said nothing. The dangerous part was how slowly I disappeared inside it. His face tightened. Claire continued. "I stopped taking certain clients because they made your associates uncomfortable. I changed restaurants because your security team preferred them. I stopped asking why you came home late because every question became an argument. Claire. And then I became pregnant." Her voice softened but did not weaken. "I thought that would bring us back to each other." Ethan looked down. "It should have." "Yes." The simplicity of her answer hurt more than anger. He walked toward the opposite wall and stopped. "My father taught me that losing control meant losing everything." Claire watched him. He trusted one man once. That man sold information to a rival family. My father survived the shooting. My older brother didn't. Claire had heard pieces of the story, never this much. Ethan's voice remained flat. "I was 16. After that, my father taught me to question everyone. Except Gabriel." Ethan looked at her. Yes, there it was, the wound beneath the arrogance. But understanding it did not erase what Ethan had done. Claire knew that distinction mattered. "You trusted Gabriel because he stayed after your brother died. He buried him with us. And Lauren?" Ethan's expression darkened with shame. "She made things easy." Claire almost smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Easy. She asked nothing real from me. No future. No responsibility. No questions I didn't want to answer. And I did. Yes. For once, he did not hide behind excuses. I punished you for expecting me to be the man I promised you I was. Claire felt something tighten inside her chest. Not love returning, grief finishing its work. Ethan stepped closer, then deliberately stopped before entering her space. I am sorry for sleeping with Lauren. I am sorry for lying to you. I am sorry I left you alone on Christmas while you were carrying our daughter. Claire's eyes burned. He continued, and I am sorry that it took danger to make me see how much of yourself you had already given up. She swallowed. That apology matters. Hope flashed across his face. Claire ended it immediately, but it does not restore our marriage. Ethan absorbed the words, then nodded. I know. This time, Claire believed him. Her phone vibrated. The new message contained an address and a time. Tonight, 11:30. Claire read it twice. Then Ethan saw the location. His face went completely still. What? Claire turned the screen toward him. The meeting place was St. Michael's Cemetery, the Bennett family mausoleum, where Ethan's brother was buried. Vincent reunashed upstairs seconds later, carrying another file. We pulled Sebastian's old phone records. Ethan looked at him, and Vincent placed the document on the table. Someone called Sebastian 31 times before every major transfer. Claire scanned the number. Ethan recognized it first. His expression emptied. That number belonged to my father. Claire looked up sharply. Your father is dead. Ethan stared at the records. He has been dead for 12 years. Yet at 10:03 that morning, the same dead man's number had sent Claire one final message. Come alone, or your child pays for your mistake. Claire read the message 3 times. Come alone, or your child pays for your mistake. For one long second, the room seemed to narrow around her. Then she placed the phone on the table. I'm going. Ethan's answer came instantly. No. Claire looked at him. You don't get to decide that. This is not about our marriage. Neither is my decision. Vincent stepped between them before Ethan could respond. The cemetery is exposed. Too many blind spots. If they control the mausoleum, they could have men anywhere. Claire nodded, which is why they expect me to panic. Ethan stared at her. And you're not? I am. She picked up the phone again. But frightened people can still think. The number supposedly belonging to Ethan's dead father bothered her more than the threat. Dead men did not make phone calls. Someone wanted Ethan emotionally distracted. Someone who knew exactly which wound to open. Claire looked toward Vincent. Can a number like this be cloned? Yes. Then whoever sent this wants Ethan thinking about his father instead of the money. Ethan's expression shifted. Claire opened the transaction files again. Sebastian handled compliance. Gabriel had access. Lauren supplied information. But none of them explains why the pattern began before Lauren entered your life. Vincent frowned. She's right. Claire moved through older financial records. The same 19-day rhythm appeared 18 months earlier. Before the affair. Before her pregnancy. Before Lauren. Ethan leaned over the screen. So Lauren was never the beginning. No. Claire looked at him. She was camouflage. At 11:18 that night, St. Michael's Cemetery sat beneath fresh snow and a moonless sky. Claire entered alone. At least, that was what anyone watching was supposed to believe. A small transmitter was hidden inside the lining of her coat. Vincent's team remained several blocks away, far enough not to trigger whatever surveillance had been placed around the cemetery. Ethan hated every second of it. He sat inside an unmarked vehicle, listening through an earpiece. Claire approached the Bennett mausoleum. The iron door stood open. Inside, one lantern burned. Lauren Vale waited beside Ethan's brother's crypt. Claire stopped. Lauren looked exhausted. No perfect makeup. No expensive dress. Only fear. You came, Lauren whispered. You threatened my child. Lauren shook her head quickly. I didn't send that. Claire studied her. Then why are you here? Because they told me if I didn't bring you, they would kill me. Claire's anger did not disappear. Lauren had still slept with her husband, still lied, still helped gather information. But this was different. Who? Lauren looked toward the darkness behind the mausoleum. I thought it was Gabriel. And now? Lauren's eyes filled with tears. Now I know Gabriel was scared too. A voice came from behind Claire. That's enough. Claire turned. Sebastian Rourke stepped inside, holding a pistol, but he was not alone. Behind him stood a man Claire had seen countless times at Bennett family dinners. Thomas Bennett, Ethan's father's younger brother. The quiet uncle, the one who had supposedly retired from the organization years ago. In Ethan's earpiece, Vincent whispered a curse. Ethan went completely still. Thomas smiled at Claire. "You really are smarter than they said." Claire kept her hands visible. "The dead phone number was yours." It was sentimental. "You used Ethan's father's number." Thomas smiled wider. "My brother always did have a talent for controlling people after death." Claire understood. The transfers, the shell companies, the trust, the forged signatures. Thomas had built the system long before Lauren ever appeared. Gabriel and Sebastian had not created the conspiracy. They had been protecting themselves inside it. Thomas stepped closer. "You were supposed to be useful, Claire. Quiet, pregnant, easy to blame when federal investigators came." Claire held his gaze. "You picked the wrong woman." His smile vanished. Then he raised the gun. Across the city block, Ethan reached for the door handle. Vincent grabbed his arm. "Not yet." Inside the mausoleum, Thomas spoke softly. "Give me the real drive." Claire reached into her bag. Thomas watched her hand. Lauren held her breath. Claire pulled out the flash drive, then smiled. "You mean this copy?" Thomas froze. Claire's voice remained calm. "The original left Boston yesterday." For the first time, genuine panic crossed his face. And when Ethan heard Thomas whisper, "Then kill her," he stopped waiting for the plan to work. Ethan was out of the vehicle before Vincent could stop him. The cemetery snow cracked beneath his shoes as he ran toward the mausoleum. Inside, Thomas had already raised the pistol. "Kill her," he said. Sebastian hesitated. That hesitation saved Claire. She dropped the flash drive and kicked it beneath the stone bench. Thomas looked down instinctively. Claire moved, not toward the door, toward Lauren. She grabbed the younger woman's arm and pulled her behind the marble column just as a gunshot shattered the lantern. Darkness swallowed the mausoleum. Lauren screamed. Claire crouched beside her, one hand protecting her stomach. "Stay down." Another shot struck stone. Then Ethan's voice cut through the darkness. "Thomas!" Everything stopped. Thomas turned toward the entrance. Ethan stood there with his weapon drawn. Vincent and two trusted men spread behind him. Thomas laughed softly. "My nephew finally arrives. Put the gun down. You always were emotional when family was involved." Ethan's jaw tightened. Claire heard the words for what they were. A distraction. Thomas wanted Ethan angry. Angry men stopped thinking. Claire did not. Her eyes adjusted to the weak emergency light spilling from the doorway. Sebastian stood several feet from Thomas. His pistol remained lowered. He looked terrified. Claire remembered the financial records, the approval codes, the repeated transfers. Sebastian had participated, but he was not in control. "Sebastian," Claire said. Thomas snapped toward her. "Be quiet." Claire ignored him. "You know what happens if Thomas walks out of here?" Sebastian swallowed. "Claire, he blames everything on you." Thomas laughed. "She's trying to save herself." "No," Claire said. "I'm showing him the math." Ethan understood immediately. He stayed silent. Claire continued. "The transfers carry Sebastian's authorization. The compliance records carry Sebastian's access code. Gabriel appears on security footage. Lauren's messages connect her to Gabriel." She looked directly at Thomas. "But almost nothing connects you." Sebastian's face changed. Thomas raised his weapon toward Claire. "Enough." Claire kept talking. "That was always the plan, wasn't it? When federal investigators came, Sebastian would become the criminal, Gabriel would become the mastermind, and I would become the dead pregnant woman whose identity tied everything together." Sebastian turned slowly toward Thomas. "You said we were protected." Thomas's expression hardened. "We are." Claire shook her head. "You are not." She reached into her coat. Thomas aimed at her. Ethan moved forward. "Claire, don't." But Claire pulled out her phone. The recording screen was glowing. Thomas stared at it. Claire had activated it before entering the cemetery. Every word had been captured, including his order to kill her. Thomas lunged. Sebastian grabbed his arm. The gun fired into the ceiling. Ethan crossed the distance in seconds. He struck Thomas's wrist. The weapon hit the floor. Vincent kicked it away. Thomas fought violently, but three men forced him down. Lauren remained frozen behind the column. Claire stood slowly. Her knees trembled. Not from weakness, from the shock finally reaching her body. Ethan turned immediately toward her. "Are you hurt?" "No." He looked at her stomach. "The baby?" "She's moving." Relief crossed his face. Then police sirens sounded beyond the cemetery gates. Thomas looked up sharply. You called the police? Claire answered. I called federal investigators. Ethan stared at her. Claire had done more than copy the files. The previous afternoon, she had sent the original drive to a federal financial crimes attorney she had worked with years earlier, along with instructions to release everything if she failed to check in. Thomas finally understood. There was no evidence left to destroy. No witness he could silence. No Bennett influence powerful enough to erase what had already been delivered. Claire approached him. You chose me because you thought a pregnant wife would be easy to frame. Thomas said nothing. You mistook quiet for weak. Federal agents entered moments later. Sebastian surrendered. Lauren agreed to cooperate. Thomas was handcuffed. Ethan watched Claire from several feet away. He had arrived believing he needed to save her. Instead, Claire had dismantled the conspiracy herself. And as the agents led Thomas away, Ethan understood something even more painful. Claire no longer needed his protection. She needed him to respect the life she had chosen without him. Claire turned toward the cemetery exit. Ethan followed, but stopped when she lifted her hand. Not tonight. He obeyed. For once, he did not argue. Then Claire's face suddenly tightened. Her hand went to her stomach. Margaret's earlier warning flashed through her mind. Claire looked down. Warm liquid touched the snow beneath her shoes. Ethan's face drained of color. Claire inhaled sharply. My water just broke. The war was finally over. But before Christmas night could end, Claire would face the one battle no evidence, money, or Mafia power could fight for her. So, Claire's story closes here, and if you're still here with me, maybe something about her choice felt a little familiar. Being betrayed hurts. Being misunderstood by someone you trusted can hurt even more. But Claire showed us something worth remembering. Pain does not require us to beg. She could not control Ethan's betrayal. She could not control Lauren's choices, Thomas's scheme, or the lies surrounding her. What she could control was what happened next. She refused to trade her dignity for someone else's loyalty. That is a very practical kind of strength. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to convince someone they hurt you. And you certainly don't need to submit a 12-page presentation explaining why you deserve basic respect. Claire walked away while she was hurting, protected her child, trusted her own mind, and slowly chose herself again. So let me ask you, would you have forgiven Ethan and returned? Or would you have closed that door too? If you believe protecting your self-respect is sometimes more important than protecting a broken relationship, write dignity in the comments. Maybe someone reading that word today needs the courage behind it. And if this story stayed with you, please like, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe. We'll meet again in the next story. Dedict logo.